Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stew in the Pot. I'm Greg Stewart, and today is a very powerful podcast, I feel, because even though Stewing in the Pot is exactly about that, it's about connecting people, getting you to think, stewing the pot, so to speak. And this one may ruffle some feathers because, well, frankly, it's been a touchy subject, especially this week. A lot of people, at least a lot of articles that I've read, a lot of things that I've seen in the media, a lot of people have not been happy on both ends of this subject. And the subject that I'm speaking about is transgender. We have people that support it and people that don't support it. In fact, I had a client just this week that was really overwhelmed by this particular subject because it actually came up in several sessions before. His wife and him, their daughter plays in the sport, and they said, "Oh, my daughter has this person in her classroom." And this was just before the year ended, and I guess now they do summer activities in reference to sports. And so he's very uncomfortable because at first it didn't bother him when the person was just in the class, but now that this person is partaking in a sport, just like a couple events that happened, at least one in particular over the weekend, where a person of a transgender basically on a sport and won the event, where two women, two young girls of the high school team, walked off the podium for reasons that I guess they felt it wasn't equal. So that's one of the key factors that this gentleman felt as well. And he really voiced his opinion. Now, I know it wasn't taken personally towards me, but I also do work in coaching to get him to think, and he needed to be coached down. He said he needed to connect on things of, feeling this way. He goes, I still don't want to change my stance. He says, I grew up with knowing two genders, and this is how I feel about it. Why should there be this? And so I pointed out because that's my job to do, basically equal rights. I said comes in all many forms, and people have fought for years to have equal rights in certain areas of life. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the freedoms that we're connecting on today. He wanted no part of this. He was like, I connect with you. You've helped me tremendously, but frankly, you're pissing me off. Frankly, is this your stance? Is this your support? And I said, is it my support to support equal rights? I said, absolutely. He goes, so you're for this in sports. So now words were becoming in my mouth. And I said, I'm not probably taking the stance that you are because I don't have basically a person competing with someone in reference to being a transgender. But I said, I want to go a little further and I want to do this. And so what I did was I connected on some notes, which I'm going to connect with you on right now. So with him, I started with these notes, just like I'm going to do here. So here was the biggest thing that happened. High school girl stage protest after trans athlete wins second straight state track championship. So now these high school girls are protesting, and they have that right, just like this person had the right to compete. They have that right to fight for their rights. And he said, well, their rights shouldn't even be a question, he said, because here's the bottom line. They're girl versus girl, woman versus woman. Why the hell should trans anything be in a competition with them, with girls, with women? And I said, okay, so let's move on because a lot of people are seeing it your way. And so I want to continue, but I also want to bring up facts because that's what I do. I told him, in order for me to help someone, I like to have as many resources as I can so I can help you come up with something that is going to connect you to your outcomes that you need and your breakthroughs. So, Trump administration threatens California with legal action over transgender athletes. So you have that. So now we have two incidents or have happened just within the week's time. And he goes, okay, so where are you going with this? I said, still working. Nebraska Governor Pillen signs transgender sports bill. He says this will create ground. Now, maybe that will benefit you, I told him. Maybe the education board where your daughter goes to school will agree or disagree with this because I know it's helping you to vent. At least that's what I hope it's doing for you, I told him. But at the same token, let's move on just so I can give you a clear mind on thinking I want you to still stick to your standards and beliefs. However, I want you to have enough resources to back up. Is your thoughts emotional, which they would be for anyone in this case, but can we find a logical place of thought to get us to find a neutral ground? So the next thing I emphasized is a TV show. I believe it's based in Ireland, but I found it on BBC, I told him. And what it feels like for a girl. What it feels like for a girl is a fairly innocent title for a teen TV series, but the stars of the BBC, the three new dramas say it's taken a deeper resonance since the show was filmed last year, and it's about basically a coming of age story about a gender questioning teenager growing up in a working class town near Nottingham, and it's hitting on all screens just a few weeks out, and the Supreme Court already ruled that the terms woman and sex in this basically take away from the Equality Act. So I said, okay, so now we have this is all I found while I was speaking with this person, my client. He knew I was going to bring this up because he felt this will help bring the equality or equity or whatever you want to put it. He said it as he worded it, equal rights towards women and men, no other fake gender as he called it. So I said, okay, I respect what you're saying. Now I said, I want to go a little further than that. Let's imagine for a moment there was no transgender, I said, what would happen? And again, this is going to ruffle some feathers, even with my clients who are listening now, going, "Are you supporting this or not?" My work is to break down and give you clarity, and you make the decisions. I'm not one to make decisions for you. So, girls in boys sports, why is this accepted? Why? And that's all I asked. I said, "Why?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, here was one where only girl on Ponder High School football team, and it emphasized her name. She was a long snapper of a boys football team, and she played there." And he goes, "Is that even really so?" Listen, how my lovely client, who I love you, I think you're great, justified this, and he knew I was going to do this. I told him this. I said, "If you want me to display this, then I'm going to break it down like this." So he referenced that. Is that even really a position? That person's never going to really see pain. They might have to block and hold someone off and maybe get knocked on their butt, but you know, that's not going to put her at risk against boys. He goes, now, would I rather see boy on boy, man on man in a sport that's technically a man's sport? Yes. So you would be okay with this in her case, right? He goes, that position, yes. So that was the justification of that. I said, okay, let's take it further. That was in one school. Then you had another one playing 3A high school championship game. It was actually in the game playing a position on a tackle football team. And this, I believe, was in Texas. And the reason why she was allowed to play, and here's the most interesting thing, the reason why this person was allowed to play was because the school said that we believe in equality. We believe in equal rights for these students. And unless we have a team that has no co-ed, then we will form that. We will give the opportunity and we will form that so that a young girl can play with boys at least until we can form a all girls team. So that's how this school justified it. We will let this person play for equal rights. So at this person, until the organization, the education, or the school, whatever way we want to put it, puts together a team so that it could be eventually an all girls team. Okay, so there's another one that was in Texas. I told him. Then coming through Laura Getz, a sophomore in Salt Lake City, also plays on a boys' team. And she emphasized, I'm not going to lie, I'm scared to be quarterback for these guys. She was the quarterback, I told my client. Does she get a pass? And then his terminology was, she can throw the ball quick enough so she doesn't get sacked. I'm all for it. And I said, does this seem fair to you? And I said, that's all. I'm not picking sides. But why is this accepted? Baseball, scrolling down, baseball. There are girls on the baseball teams. Now, granted, they said they try to push them towards softball because they have that, but they're not going to omit them from baseball. And a lot of schools allowed girls to be in co-ed baseball. So I referenced this to him. I emphasized this. And again, I said, I love the passion, connect to the emotion. And he said, I still feel strongly. My daughter works hard to compete with women, with young women, with girls. I'm supporting my daughter against to bring out her best. Should I put my daughter on steroids to compete with a transgender who has a mixture of testosterone slash and estrogen because that's their gender, so they claim, is what he says. And I said, you know what? Your feelings, your questions are so valid. And here at least we can talk about it. And you could always go to these branches of education and state your opinion, start polls and do whatever, because that's my goal is to help you get the outcome you need. But I also want you to connect on, the essence of having your facts and resources in reference to what's okay to you and what's not okay. We know in this case, but you accepted the gender of woman or young girl against man or young man. But is there more to it than the alias of transgender? Is it because you see it not as a human? Do you see it as something else? And he said, look, I'm not going to go any further. I didn't want and he knows that this is going to be on here. He goes, I'm just really uncomfortable for my daughter. And I don't want to make this about him, but I want to make this about society as well, in reference to what's accepted and what's not. And if you do have a voice and you don't want to speak about it, because I'll hear a lot of people that will mention it, but in public they won't, or they'll go anonymously because, again, freedom of speech isn't sometimes all that. There's politics in everything, there's concerns in everything. What we do, why we do what we do in reference to this particular subject, I get it. This was a little difficult for me to come on and talk about because, one, my clients, they might misinterpret, are you supporting, are you not supporting? Because I have clients of all genres, of all genders. So I just want to connect that, know your resources, have your reasons why, because that's what makes you a great human being, is having your beliefs and values. And that's what this is about. And I love the passion in reference to my client and stating how they felt about this particular subject. But do you feel it's fair? Do you feel that, are you okay with it? And a lot of people will tell me, the ones that I did speak about this, I'm okay with it. And I can't really give them the vision of, would you be okay like this person did with me if you had a child or a teen playing in a sport that has them compete with someone that's a transgender? And for me, I'm going to be honest, I just see people. I, for me, I competed and I competed. Yes, when I competed in martial arts, there wasn't a transgender. But for me, if someone could bring out the best in me to be better, but I get it in reference to high school, you're preparing your kids, you're preparing them to, show them greatness, to bring out their greatness. So I support that, especially when your young person is working hard to get to a level and then they feel that it was stripped because someone that wasn't equal was in there. But you could say the same with steroids. You could say the same with different areas of sports. When someone competes, I always hear right now, well, if you're going to have your kid playing football, you better get him on steroids because everybody in college and high school are doing steroids because you have to have that to compete. Is that okay? Is that okay? And again, I'm stewing the pot. I'm connecting with you. But yes, I competed with guys that did steroids. I competed with guys that were triple my height, triple my weight. And basically, I had to bring out the best of myself. I had to find other ways to win. And I'm not saying that that's the case because, yes, attributes do play a significant role. Attributes play a significant role in competition. So there is a double-edged sword here. Now, my recommendation, if it was my kid, my teen, my child, what have you, I would say, you know what? We can't change the policies of the school. They're going to do what they have to do. Two things, however, though, what I'm going to recommend to you. I want you to train, and I want you to feel that person's energy, and I want you to have the choice to compete against that person, and maybe you lose. But I also want to put you in a competition that does have someone in reference to your gender. But I want you to get the best of both worlds because I want you to feel the difference of energy in reference to competition. This, even if you were to lose to someone that is a caliber of gender different or energy or strength or on something, any of the above. I want us to find ways to work around that to say, okay, they're stronger. Maybe I need speed, or they're faster. Maybe I need strength. I want us to use one of the things I did when I played football was I would always play with the next grade or two higher to bring out the best in me. When I did martial arts, I always looked for someone that was a higher level. I always emphasize that to my kids. Always look for next level. Always don't make excuses because in life, there's going to be challenges that are out of your control that's going to mess with you, work against you. And the best thing to do is to work through it and find the loopholes. In this case, find the loopholes to work with that, maybe even compete if you want, but utilize that training and then compete somewhere else where the ground is a little more equal. Now, hopefully that's good advice. I didn't bring that to my gentleman that I was coaching because he already had a vision. He already had a standard. He already had a belief, and there's nothing wrong with that. That was his values and beliefs, and a lot of people feel that way, and I support that. Again, this is just in reference to how I would right now at this moment, thinking about it, talking about it. If my son, who is in high school, came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm on the wrestling team and we have a transgender," I would support that because that's what the school has and utilize your attributes to the best of your knowledge. If you don't wish to compete, don't compete. But I still try to see basically equal in reference to. So in this case, I support both. My pastor said it best a couple services back about a half a year ago. He said, I want to talk to everybody about people, about gender. See, and I think it was just around holiday time. And he says, I love you all. I love my whole flock. I love my future flock. I love that you talk to people and bring in more people to raise the flock of this church, to raise this awareness. And he goes, but I do want to say one thing because I have many people that will come to me and talk to me and connect with me and resonate with me. And some people will bring to my attention transgender. I'm not here to offend you. But I want to emphasize one thing and one thing only. All are welcome. What you do outside of this church, I love you regardless. I don't judge you. I don't put my standards and values and beliefs on you. However, according to the good book, according to the Bible, my pastor said, he goes, I only see two genders. That's all I see. If you come up to me and you're saying you're a they, or you're this, or you're that, and I can totally tell what your gender is, I will not acknowledge you outside of your name. I will acknowledge you. But if you are trying to tell me that you are a other gender other than a man or a woman, and I know what you are in reference to your gender, and it's obvious to me, I will not acknowledge the they factor or transgender factor. And so I look at it like that, not to offend or anything. What you do, I'll support you by your name. I won't insult you. I see a person. At the end of the day, I see a person, and I love all people. I love all people no matter what. It doesn't matter, what your beliefs are. I'm going to support and love you, support and love and connect with you. But you are what the good book brought you in this world to be. And like my pastor, I'm going to support that. In reference to transgenders in sports, I think that there should be a basic, if they have a co-ed, great. If they have co-ed, meaning transgender women versus man, or a non-co-ed, where man versus man, young boy versus young boy, woman versus woman, young woman versus young woman, and transgender versus transgender. Maybe that's a way to get even more knowledge known of these athletes, to get together and become as one, to get your equal rights, by building up first a foundation of having also not by themselves, also have the option of transgender versus transgender sport, and also basically, as it's already becoming in certain states, basically transgender versus woman, and then transgender versus man. And that was the other thing that my client did say. He goes, I'm hearing more and more about transgender in track, running against, like, my daughter, running at this school, and no, these girls not going on the podium, other schools bailing, Nebraska signing a bill, Trump signing a bill. Why is it, though, he said, that these transgender athletes are not competing against guys? Because they know they could win against our daughters. So they know they can beat our daughters. You want to prove something to me? He said. Why don't you compete against guys? What are you afraid of there? And I didn't do my research on, said next time we speak, I'll find out what men competed with transgender athletes, and I'll get back to you with that. Said, wonderful question. I don't really know much about it, if it has happened or not, because the only things that you have heard are the athletes who have won, and those who have won have been in women's sports, transgender versus woman. But I said, you know what? Really passionate answer, really passionate question, and him and I are going to connect again on it. So that's one of the key things to focus on. So again, I'm not the person who makes the bills. I'm not the one who connects on why schools are doing or not doing this. Like I said, bills are getting signed everywhere, but this is my work to do, stewing the pot, getting you to think, getting you to focus, getting you to basically what affects you, what doesn't. And I would love you to put in the comment area, like, well, it doesn't really bother me. And okay, so also, what do you think should happen? Do you think some of the points I made, perhaps having a transgender team, like you would have a men's baseball team and a women's baseball team, or a teen and teen baseball? Give comments, give these, because that's what this podcast is about, to stew the pot, to get people out of the box, to get people to connect, to get people to think, to find their way through. And I thought that I feel a lot better now actually talking to you all about it, because at first, I'll be honest, between my own personal clients and their belief systems, and a lot of people that's watching, their beliefs, this show is not about to offend, and it was a very tricky thing in reference to feeling comfortable, because I don't want to offend you, I don't want to overwhelm you, but I think we did good together. I think that I was able, by utilizing my client who had no problem just not saying his name and putting it out there, of our meeting, of our talking, of our session, and then bringing out some facts in reference to some of the articles that I pulled up. So I commend you. I thank you for being cool with me on this subject, because it is touchy for everybody, and not because they're not people, this, that. It's just, it's an interesting, delicate situation because of all the energy that's coming around it. But enough said. Thank you again for partaking in this. It was very powerful in reference to transgender athletes and all of our athletes and everyone that's out there. Everybody works hard to be an athlete. So, and we're all athletes in our own way and shape and form, being a dad, being a mom, being a person in this day and age. Okay. You're athletic. You have to build up stamina to get to work, to do the things that you do. So, we're all equal. And that's what I want to connect on. Until then, this is Greg Stewart with Stewing the Pot. Thanks for joining me. So, we're stewing the pot, and I hope that you enjoyed this podcast today in reference to Stewing the Pot with myself, Greg Stewart. And this podcast is sponsored by Stew Sweets. If you like a wonderful, healthy alternative to desserts, but you don't want to put on the calories, well, Stew Sweets would be that for you because they have the best high protein, super low carbs, no sugars. All sugars that are in it are natural and very low, very tasty. Stew Sweets specializes in Dubai chocolates as well as cookies, and all wonderful pro bodybuilder whey proteins are in it. I think they use the raw with sebum if you're familiar with the fitness world. If not, look it up. Sebum's protein, I believe it's called Raw, RAW, and give that a check out. But once again, thank you for listening in to the podcast here with Stewing the Pot. I'm Greg Stewart, and we're going to continue our journey together. Thanks a lot. Do me a favor when you get a chance, subscribe and like us because we do appreciate it. We're going to have a lot of interesting things to talk about. But once again, please down below, please like us there. Please also subscribe. It is very appreciated. Looking forward to your comments there. And again, if you need help, take a look also after the little commercial in reference to Stew Sweets at the end. Take a look at the helpline there because we can get you some help, and we are offering consultations for free as well as a session to help you find your identity and stop living this behavior. Till next time, this is Greg with Stewing the Pot. See you later.